Here are a few suspicious things about that alleged wildfire in Maui, Hawaii. Number 1, alarms never went off. This small island has over 400 alarms, but yet not one sounded. Number 2, all the water supply was cut off during the fire. Why? But all the officials were evacuated while the residents fought for their lives. Number 3, miraculously a few multi-million-dollar homes were left untouched. Like literally.
So Lahaina, Hawaii has always been one of the most beautiful, amazing places on Earth. But now I believe it is the most important place on Earth. And I'll tell you why. I'm Jordan, alive and kicking out here on this beautiful day. I live in a place called 30A, Florida. It's similar in a lot of ways to Lahaina. It doesn't have quite the rich culture and history, but it's similar in the way that it's this little bubble that is highly desirable, and there's been these like wagons and troops circling it for years and years, trying to pounce on it and exploit it, because we're a very small tropical beach town that is this beautiful, amazing paradise that does not allow corporations and chains and stuff in. We have dug our heels in. We've been very tough over the years, but after the pandemic, a lot of the tough locals kind of fled and left the area, left us vulnerable to this invasion of corporations and big money and stuff, and it's changing the culture of our town. Now, when I look at Lahaina, I see a lot of similarities. This is a very proud, very strong local place. It's full of a lot of natives there in Hawaii. It used to be the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii before they moved it to Honolulu for some stupid reasons. It is filled with historical buildings, mom and pop's family-owned businesses. It has a pride and a culture and a vibe there that you just cannot replace. It is what we want every place in the world to be like. It is full of hardworking, happy, proud locals, people that love their life and love their community and love their families and love their land and want to take care of it. And for years, there's been a lot of big money and celebrities and terrible corporations trying to infiltrate that nice place and exploit it the same way they have done to a lot of other places in Hawaii and around the world. We can't let this happen. So no matter what you think about these fires, obviously they're suspicious. But more obvious than that, Hawaii and the governor of Hawaii has big plans for Hawaii as a state to become a smart state, to become all these smart cities. They just had a smart city expo there in Maui, and they're about to have another one, like an international AI conference, I think in Honolulu, coming up. And they are very vocal about this. They have deep, like WEF, cooperative ties. They definitely want Hawaii to be a AI-powered smart kingdom, is what they want. So a place like Lahaina, unfortunately, they see that as one of these last holdouts. Like, they want that area, they want that land. So I'm not saying they started these fires or anything. I'm not saying that. We have no proof, but it is very suspicious. And people should be asking questions and digging like crazy, just to at least find out how this happened and prevent it from happening again. But more importantly, what we need to prevent from happening, we need to get these locals back in there. We need to get these local family businesses back open. We need to rebuild these historical sites. We saw it a lot during the BLM riots and stuff. Suspiciously, a whole lot of fires were started and riots were started in historical buildings and regions and areas and stuff like that. It's a way for them. Historical buildings and historical districts have different rules and laws and stuff that protect them. And rich people don't like that because they want to go in and just bulldoze everything and build high-rises and stuff. You can't do that if there's historical protected places. So one of the ways to get around that is burn it to the ground. We saw this during BLM. There's a lot of very irreplaceable historical buildings and districts that got damaged, and people fled and left and didn't come back, and now they're getting taken over by BlackRock and these kind of vanguard places. We can't let that happen here. This is one of the most purest and one of the most beautiful and one of the best places, Lahaina I'm speaking of, in the world. It just is. There's no way around it. It is one of the last holdouts of the world, not just of Hawaii. And I think it's very important to see how this moves forward. That fire happened. The destruction is done. We can't go back in time. But what we need to do is make sure that it's rebuilt in the same image as it was before, with the same vibe and the same culture and the same people. We cannot allow these people to flush out these locals and these families and replace them with corporations and shit like that. I think that is the agenda here. I think that is what they want to do, and we can't let that happen because Lahaina is more than just a beautiful place. It stands for what we should all stand for: pride, culture, community, family, small business. It stands for that. It stands for all these things. Take care of your land, love your land, be proud of who you are. Lahaina is extremely important as a tipping point for where our world heads next. When we have these kinds of disasters, do we try to rebuild it with the same love as it had before, or do we just scrap it and start over with some AI-powered smart city bullshit? This is going to tell us. Like, let's see what they do in the next coming weeks, months, years. And this will be a barometer of what the establishment agenda is moving forward. If they have nothing to hide, and they weren't responsible for this, and they didn't have any agendas, then we'll see the same buildings and same families in charge, and the same businesses pop right back up. So let's hope, cross our fingers, that happens, because I think Lahaina is the most important place on Earth.
The Kingdom of Hawaii remained a fairly remote, disconnected country for many years, until these guys arrived. During the 17 and 1800s, many people from Europe and the United States came to visit Hawaii, mainly on expeditions of exploring the ocean. But the ones that stayed were mainly Americans, who arrived to these islands wanting to talk about Jesus. For the most part, the Kingdom of Hawaii welcomed these visitors. One British explorer even gifted the Hawaiian king a British flag, and Hawaii eventually adopted the British flag into their own flag. There was general friendship and good relations here. The American missionaries who had settled on the island eventually had kids and grandkids. And soon, these missionaries and their descendants weren't just interested in talking about Jesus. They were also interested in building businesses, mainly focused on sugar.
By far the most valuable single product Hawaii can offer in that trade is sugar.
With this increased economic interest, these Americans who had originally come to be missionaries were now much more into sugar. And they did what people of European descent have been doing for many centuries, looking at a culture and government that is different than theirs and saying, we think we could do this better. Let us take it from here. And so during the 1800s, these Americans slowly chipped away at the Hawaiian government structure. They were still newcomers in this ancient island nation. They didn't have much power, but that changed quickly.
The Pacific always comes rolling in. Mile upon mile of dazzling white beaches.
By the end of the 1800s, these Jesus sugar Americans had amassed a huge amount of Hawaii's wealth. And those original missionaries who had come to the island to convert people to their religion years earlier now had grandkids that looked like this. A full-on armed militia of white Hawaiian citizens, descendants of the missionaries, who were eager to get the government out of the way so that they could run the country themselves and help make it more favorable for their sugar businesses. Now remember, these guys were born in Hawaii. They considered themselves Hawaiians. But even still, their loyalty still lie with the country of their ancestors. They were effectively Americans still. By 1893, this local white militia and their political allies were ready for a full-on takeover of the government, which at the time was headed by this woman, Queen Liliuokalani. The sugar missionaries were still a minority, and a full-on overthrow of the government would have been hard by themselves. But luckily for them, they had help. The American ambassador of Hawaii at the time helped coordinate the arrival of an American military ship and troops to show up on the shores of the island of Oahu into the capital city of Honolulu. Up until this point, the conflict in Hawaii was technically internal, meaning it was between the locals and the white missionaries who were technically locals because they were born there. But the moment the US arrived to Honolulu to provide military backup for a government overthrow, it became a full-on military coup sponsored by a foreign power, a cardinal sin in international relations. But even still, the government backed the overthrow. The Queen was forced to give up her power, and they put this guy as the leader of the new Republic of Hawaii. His name was Sanford Dole. His family was huge in the sugar business.
There's a new taste in pineapple from Dole.
And now he was the leader of the country of Hawaii. The locals fought this, but peacefully. They protested. Nearly every adult on the islands signed a petition condemning the takeover. Back in Washington, D.C., a debate began as to what to do with Hawaii now that a bunch of pro-American missionaries turned sugar warriors had grabbed power. Dole himself traveled to D.C. to lobby for the U.S. to take over Hawaii for themselves. But so did a group of local Hawaiians to oppose the American encroachment. The queen who was overthrown wrote a letter demanding to be reinstated as the legitimate leader of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The United States was split on what to do until 1898, when the new president surrounded himself with leaders who kind of loved war and American expansion. And this is what sealed the fate of Hawaii. All of these displays of vehement, peaceful protests by the Hawaiian people were trampled on by a superpower who had bigger guns and an insatiable desire for control. So one summer day in 1898, the U.S. showed up, and the flag of the Kingdom of Hawaii was taken down, and the U.S. flag was raised. Hawaii was now officially a possession of the United States of America. With the help of these sugar-loving missionaries, these islands had been plucked from their people and put in the hands of a growing superpower. But stealing land is one thing. The real theft is what happened next. At this point, Hawaii was just a U.S. territory, not a state. But even still, the U.S. began a deep, widespread destruction of Hawaiian way of life. The Hawaiian language was banned in schools, and government and businesses were by law required to be conducted in English. The U.S. began developing land, often on sacred sites, and the history itself was censored, to make it seem as if the Hawaiian people welcomed the US without a fight. Much of the real history became inaccessible because it was only documented in the Hawaiian language, which was beginning to die. And then in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the Union and quickly became the place we know today. Meanwhile, Dole Food Company, the company who was perhaps helped the most by this land grab, has become a massive global corporation. By 1993, Hawaii was a full-on part of the United States. That year, President Bill Clinton came out with an apology.
Presidential apology. At the White House yesterday, President Clinton signed a formal letter of apology to the people of Hawaii. He was apologizing on behalf of the U.S. government for the government's involvement 100 years ago in removing the independent Hawaiian monarchy by force.
But despite this horrendous land grab and the pillaging and theft of these islands, there is a little bit of hope here. That spirit of peaceful resistance that led to petitions and protests back in 1893 persisted even after the takeover. The Hawaiian language was delicately preserved through painstaking effort. And today, there are full immersion Hawaiian language public schools. Hawaiian traditions have stayed alive. And last year, Hawaiians showed that they were not willing to give up their sacred sites. They staged a dramatic protest to protect a holy mountain that was slated to be developed on. Hawaii may have been stolen, and attempts made to erase its culture. But while the negative effects of this imperial land grab are wide-reaching, many pillars of this beautiful culture have survived.
Valuable company in each state, this is Hawaii. From Honolulu, we have Hawaii Electric Industries. They supply 95% of Hawaii's population with electricity, making them an electric monopoly on the islands. They were founded in 1891 and have a market cap of $4.5 billion.
Ashley! Look at me!
Hi, Raylene again with another update coming out of Maui. From our governor. He has some wonderful plans for the Lahaina area, and I'm so excited to share them with you. If you missed my last video about smart cities in Maui and what's going on in that front, please make sure to go view that because it pairs perfectly with this one. The governor says that the state is looking to acquire land that was destroyed in the fires. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? Doesn't that sound great? According to an article from postmillennial.com, our governor said that he is vowing to prevent foreign buyers from swooping in to exploit this tragedy by suggesting that the state is better suited to take control of the land. Oh my gosh, isn't this the best solution you've ever heard? The state's handling of the Maui crisis, I've been sharing about it. What are your thoughts? Is the state really better suited to take control of the land. I love their words there, take control. They're really going to do it. They're taking control, aren't they? He says, I'm already thinking of ways for the state to acquire the land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to the people who are lost. Those out-of-state buyers are a real concern here for Maui and the residents. And so our state has a perfect solution. Probably ties in with their solution for smart cities to take care of the alarms and all the alerts that never happened. But anyways, he says the state will take it, quote, and preserve it first. I love that they just use those words of power and control. The state's going to take the land and preserve it first, just for you, Hawaii, Maui. Are you listening to what's going on? How do you feel about this? I would love to know, but there's more. Quote from our governor, I will try to allow no one from outside our state to buy any land until we get through this crisis and decide what Lahaina should be in the future. Who's deciding? Who's taking? Who's controlling? Sounds like our governor and our government. Isn't that great? I bet you guys are so excited about this.
And for all the naysayers in the comments, here is Maui's Smart Grid Demonstration Project proposal, brought to you by the University of Hawaii, dated December 2014, so clearly this has been in the works for quite a while. And the company Hitachi that is beginning to implement this Jumpstart Maui project. And check that out. The state of Hawaii's goal to obtain 40% of its electric power generation from renewable energy sources by 2030. Where have we seen this date? That's right, our favorite people at the WEF and Davos, the same ones that say we have a climate crisis and fly private jets all over the world to go meet each other.
This is exactly what I was saying. This is a land transfer from the people to the elite.
I've been on Maui the last 9 years. There was no fucking way that a hurricane missed Big Island, went to Maui, and didn't flood them, but it caused fires in the most precious parts of real estate in Maui. Lahaina Front Street is worth billions. The Hawaiians have been holding out for years, not wanting to sell their property in Lahaina.
The Hawaii Digital Government Summit, September 25th in Honolulu. How convenient timing for them to be talking about a new government digitally enforced by AI and the possibility of making Hawaii the first smart city. I wonder if they needed to clear a bunch of land out to start testing this theory of a smart city governed by AI technology. They put the disclaimer at the top of their website saying it's not about using AI to control humans, and then within 2 minutes of reading, they will literally say this summit is about using AI to control people in the future. I'm being
actually easier to build a mansion in Hawaii than it is to build an affordable house. A mansion fits neatly into the definition of agricultural zoning. One house on 1 acre. You can see this is Oprah's house. Very easy to build. You don't have to go through any public testimony. You don't have to go through any hearings. You don't have to go to the State Land Use Commission. You just build the house.
It's hard to save your land when you have a billionaire fighting you for it.
Terry Ferreira's cousin sold her land for $400 to a company called North Shore Kalo LLC, not realizing it's owned by Zuckerberg. Then his attorney called Terry.
His first words out of his mouth was, how does it feel to get $800 for land that you never knew you had? And we assume we're selling to a Kalo farmer. We're like, yeah, that sounds good.
Kalo is the Hawaiian word for taro, a plant that's sacred to Native Hawaiians. It's central to their creation story and is a staple food in its pounded form.
And then you found out that North Shore Kalo LLC is Mark Zuckerberg's company.
Yes.
And how did you feel when you found that out?
I was mad. I was upset. I felt deceived.
Will you sell the land?
No, I won't sell it. He can offer me $100,000. I won't take it.
Tell me why.
Because it's our culture. That's our native land, and just to preserve it. What you see here in Hawaii now, with all the buildings and just the overdevelopment, we're overcrowded. Hawaii is not like how it used to be.
The problem of land loss is bigger than Zuckerberg. It's been happening since American plantation owners led a coup overthrowing the Hawaiian kingdom in 1893. Radio host Kaulani Mahuka faults the Hawaiian state she calls illegitimate for facilitating the land grabs.
This allows a wealthy landowner or someone with money to come in and essentially point at a piece of land and say, that's looking real good for me. I think I want that land. Oh, pesky Hawaiians? Kuleana land? Well, how do we get rid of them? How do we get them off the land? Fake state of Hawaii comes along and says, no problem, rich guy. There's a process called quiet title.
Kaulani hosts a weekly radio show called Songs of Sovereignty, where she talks about all the land issues Native Hawaiians face today.
If you had one message for Americans who live on the mainland, who see Hawaii as this paradise, this vacation destination for their honeymoons or whatever, what would it be?
We want to share our home with people, but we want you to go home after you've visited. Stop moving here. You need to stop moving here because we have nowhere to live.
The uproar over Zuckerberg's lawsuits prompted State Representative Kaniela Ing to introduce a bill that would force anyone pursuing quiet title to enter mediation with the families first.
This is the same tool that's been used for over 200 years. The sugar barons, the plantation owners used to use it to strip Hawaiian land from Hawaiian hands. And we need to put an end to this once and for all.
Because the legal system is stacked against them, some Native Hawaiians have resorted to occupying their Kuleana lands.
When white Europeans invaded North America, they systematically committed land theft.
What you're saying is not wrong. However, if we were going to talk about this, if we could include what's happening in Hawaii, after all, we share the month together as Pacific Islanders, right? I agree with everything except you're glossing over one fact. A lot of Asian Americans in Hawaii, not talking about the continent, and I don't want to throw shade or hate towards Asian Americans because my grandfather is full Japanese. However, the Japanese Americans here in Hawaii have taken the European model that you speak about and currently doing the exact same thing to indigenous Hawaiians. So I would argue that we can't just gloss over that and be like, hey, it's only the Europeans who do it, because that's not a true statement. Just saying.
Hawaii Chinatown, Chinese New Year.
We're gonna be talking about the Puerto Ricans of Hawaii. Yes, I said it, guys. We're in Hawaii. I didn't believe it myself, but check this out.
The circumstances in Puerto Rico that drove the Puerto Ricanos to Hawaii, as given by most historians, were that the invasion by the United States Army had cut off all of Puerto Rico's commerce, especially the coffee. The United States also stopped importing the Puerto Rican sugar. There was a hurricane, San Ciriaco, on August 8th of 1899 that wiped out the southwestern part of the island, killing about 3,000 people, wiping out the subsistence crops that people depended on for their daily bread. Oh, there was a plague after that.
My sister, brother, borinque, my cousin, auntie, borinque, foreign borinque too.
They came with maracas, they came with the cuatro, they came with palitos. The first Puerto Ricans to come to Hawaii started arriving on December 23rd, 1900. The 11th group arrived in October of 1901. That was a total of about, it was about 5,000 men, women, and children.
My parents were born and raised in Kauai, and my grandfather came from, he was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico, and he was raised in Al Junta, and my grandmother was from Peñuela.
I used to listen to anything that has music, you know, like from 7 years old. I used to play the guitar. I couldn't read notes, but just the sound of it, you know. So then I started to play. I made my own group, girls group.
So I just ran into this information. I actually knew from friends. I always thought that it was just because of the military, but like you've seen since 1900. And for all the people that didn't know, we weren't even U.S. citizens in 1900. We were Puerto Rican residents.
Unusual sight captured on camera. Japanese and local astronomers say a Chinese satellite was recently seen beaming down green lasers over the islands. This video captured atop the Subaru telescope on Mauna Kea, operated by the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan. Bryce Moore has the story.
The lasers flash for just a couple seconds. Initially thought to be from a NASA altimeter satellite, the Japanese put out a correction note on Monday saying NASA scientists found a most likely candidate as the ACDL instrument by the Chinese Daki-1 AEMS satellite. I went to a University of Hawaii astronomer who read up on AEMS instruments.
It's a Chinese satellite that is measuring pollutants, among other things. It has many different instruments on it, some kind of topographical mapping, or they're also used for measuring stuff in the Earth's atmosphere, and I think that's what it is. It's an environmental measurement satellite.
I also sat down with the former Chief of Staff of Marine Forces Pacific. He had some questions.
I'm not sure, this is my opinion, why the Chinese, who are probably some of the most prolific polluters on the planet, would be collecting data on pollutants on this side of the Pacific.
Both experts say.
Let me ask you about the Chinese nationals who we all saw coming over the border, busloads of them, and then being released in the American interior. What's the percentage increase of Chinese nationals who crossed the border this year, Mr. Secretary? Let's just focus on maybe the Rio Grande Valley sector.
The number of Chinese nationals encountered at our southern border has increased significally.
Do you know how much?
Over the past, I don't have the precise.
I do. It's 900% just in the Rio Grande Valley sector. Are any of these people who came in this bus, these Chinese nationals, members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, if an individual presents a national security or public safety threat, we detain them during the pendency
But that's not what I asked. I asked if they're members of the CCP.
During the pendency of their removal proceedings.
Are any of these individuals members of the CCP?
So
I think there's about 70 who came on this bus.
If indeed they are determined to be a national security threat or a threat to public safety, we detain them pending their removal proceedings.
Were any of these individuals detained, or were they released into the interior of the country?
I don't have awareness of that particular group of individuals.
And so you don't know if any of them were members of the CCP? Or actually, you do know, you just won't say.
I don't know from the photograph, Senator, to whom.
But surely you know about the folks who you've read this report. You're the Secretary of Homeland Security. You're aware of these individuals. Were any of them members of the Chinese Communist Party coming into this country?
Senator, you're providing me with a group of individuals without names, identities, or.
So you're not familiar with this incident that was widely reported on at the southern border? Don't you think it's strange that we have busloads of Chinese nationals?
Y preto el bulevares, con mi compa flaco arremangando, unos guaraches en mi gorra de la